Welcome back, everyone, to A Certain Point of View, the brand new episode from here. I am Jake Berlin, your host, and I am joined today by Brian Avolicino. Before we get to us, we have a very special guest, our first official guest on the show, Sean the Saint Sullivan. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. Well, this is your first guest and my first appearance on anything outside of Schmoedown, so this should be it's a good first for everything.
Yes, that is perfect. Yeah. We have our first official guest, and obviously we're going to get into his Star Wars debut in the Schmoedown, and we're obviously going to get to Atlanta as well and kind of dive into that. But before we get into any kind of match discussions, we're going to get to know Sean a little bit, and I'm going to ask the most basic question of any of the questions. What is it about the Schmoedown, and why the Schmoedown?
Why or what is it? I don't know. I've been watching it for probably 4 or 5 years now, and it's always kind of grabbed me. Always been a fan of movie talk and schmoes and Screen Junkies and all that. So that's kind of how I found the Schmoedown as far as a fan goes, and then. Last year, you were there, yes. So this is a more interesting story. Last year, I was at the award show. I wanted to say the draft, but it wasn't the draft last year. At the award show with my girlfriend sitting right next to you and your girlfriend, and I was wearing a loud and obnoxious plaid suit.
You sure were.
So, of course, I caught Makuga's attention that way. And I got thrown Andrew Guy's Heel of the Year award.
I do remember
which
that.
I actually have, and I texted my girlfriend to go grab it because it's kind of hiding right now, and I should have grabbed it before this. But yeah, so I physically have Andrew Guy's Heel of the Year award signed by most of the competitors that were there. After the show that day, we ran into Makuga, started talking to Makuga, and kind of from there, we're invited to a taping and met Silvestrini and PJ Campbell and slowly Mark Ellis and everyone that way. And then this year so we've been going to tapings for pretty much a solid year, and got to watch from. As far as a backstage kind of look, the difference between the beginning of last year and the beginning of this year is an astronomical difference. And it started last year. I think that a lot of the stuff last year, you started seeing things get a little bit more solidified as far as processes and everything. And the beginning of this year, as far as how they run the tapings and stuff, it feels like... they say it feels like a sport. It feels like a professional production. Whereas even last year, it definitely had that feeling of a bunch of people who were friends and getting together and all that. And this year, just everyone in the room is taking it so seriously. Everyone in the room is a John Roca. But so as far as how I actually became a competitor, in my post-match interview, my first match, I kind of mention it, but a little bit more seriously. I mean, when you're in those tapings, everyone's got their phone out, everyone's got a notepad open, and everyone is, writing down the answers as the questions are asked. They want to see what they're going to get if they were competing. The first person I noticed doing this in my first taping, which was Kevin Smetz's first ever match, was Chandru. Okay. So Chandru's just sitting there writing every answer on his phone, and he got 90% or something like that. And after the match, he goes up to Christian, and Christian's like, "Hey, how'd you do?" And Chandru's like, "Oh, I only missed 1 or 2." And so that's kind of the process where there's these people that Christian kind of picks up on and watches and decides, yeah, you're going to be good or bad. But so that's how Chandru got in. Little behind the scenes on someone who isn't me. But then, so I've been doing that with Inner Geekdom matches for all of last season. my accuracy would not be anywhere near what someone like would be. But I just, I've always been a huge Star Wars fan, and Spectacular this year, legit, what I said was true. I was sitting next to Rachel Silvestrini and Saul, and I didn't know who Saul was yet. So I'm sitting next to this guy in a blue suit with a big long, and we're both watching the Star Wars match and just answering the questions on our phone. I think I missed 2 questions. I won't say what they are.
That's fair. That's fair.
For reasons. But I missed 2 questions in their match. One was one of Alex's questions, and then one was one of Laura. I was like, Lauren Kelly. No, that's not it. Laura Kelly. Missed one of Laura's questions. So, after a little bit of drinking, Rachel, who has become an awesome friend for me, I'm so happy we're in the same faction. Rachel was like, let's go talk to Christian. Let's get you in this. And I offhandedly said it to Christian and said, hey, I want to do Star Wars next year if you've got open spots. And he said, we'll talk closer to the draft. That conversation never happened.
Whoa, okay.
The way we found out I would be in the draft was Christian had initially, a couple weeks before the draft, posted a player roster on the Facebook page. I didn't look at it. I didn't see it. But my girlfriend Jill did see it. And she's like, hey, you're on this list. Have you talked to Christian? I'm like, no, I haven't. And then he retracted the list. So I didn't know. I didn't have any confirmation from Christian that I was 100% sure in. And then eventually, I did talk to Christian. I reached out. I'm like, hey, I saw him on the list. Am I on this list? No, that's not true. I actually never even talked to Christian until right before. I received he messaged me for my email. He said, hey, what's your email? And I said, I sent him my email, and then I received an email that said, hey, all players for 2020 season or season 7, the new era, whatever the email said. Here's what's going on for the draft. Here's what you need to know. So that's kind of how it happened. And I couldn't be happier because it's, going from being a fan to being a competitor, even on a minor scale, is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not looking to. Go ahead.
It's something that as fans we always think about constantly. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're always watching these matches, wondering if we could ever do this. And Brian and I have started this reaction thing where we start playing with the matches and starting to see how we feel with it. How did it Did your mindset instantly change, or was there kind of almost like a shock value when you found out it was officially happening?
It was 100% shock value. Because to be honest, I always saw myself as just being kind of, I wanted to do it. I wanted to get around these people. I enjoy these people. It looks like a lot of fun. And Silvestrini and I, when we had talked about it last year, we had talked about I could be the Josh McCouga of the Inner Geekdom. I just wanted to be the guy that went out and drank, which I did in my first match, but for other reasons. I just wanted to be the guy that went out and drank and had fun and kind of, made a fool of myself. That's not what this season is, though. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there was a little bit of an initial shock value in that. For 2 reasons. So number 1, my draft position. I was if you don't count Adam Witt, I was the 2nd overall drafted Star Wars player. I was the 2nd dedicated Star Wars player to get drafted. So, it was Alex and then me. Adam did go before I did, but at the time, Kaiser had no idea he was a Star Wars player. Yeah. No one else in the room knew he was a Star Wars player except for Paul Preston. And so that fact made it, okay, now, people are going to be expecting a lot more out of me than just, showing up and acting a fool if I'm a 4th round pick. People are joking, 4th round Roka. Rocco was draft number 32. I was number 33.
Ooh, I like that.
That's
So-
my question for you was, were you shocked at how high and how quickly it seemed you got drafted?
Absolutely. Because so I was sitting with with Rachel and with Janine and Brandon and James White. And first and foremost, we're shocked at how soon James White was drafted.
It was quick.
But Rachel and I had made a pact before the event. We would each drink until we were drafted.
Oh, no.
Man.
And then I had said, no, I'm not going to do that because then I will be drinking until the next day when the drafts get announced on Twitter. Because I know a few of the managers. I am very close with a few of the managers and had an idea of which ones may or may not draft me. None of those did, but partly because Kate Mulligan just, comes out and starts singing my name.
I love her, man. She is just the best.
She's perfect.
I will tell you, I had met Kate. Before that day, I had met Kate once at Spectacular, and hadn't talked to her since. So that was a pretty big shock to me. I had my eye on other managers, and I wasn't really concerned about getting drafted because we were under the impression that the draft mattered. But remember, at the time there was going to be 8 players per team, and there was going to be 10 teams. So, assuming that every team needed a Star Wars player, that meant that every Star Wars player would need to get drafted. I think that everyone's outlook on that changed a lot after the draft happened, because you haven't really heard from any of the undrafted players.
Yeah.
There's some talk with certain on SEN and stuff. There's been some talk with hey, what if this person joins? What if that person joins? People sending in super chats suggesting people. But as it is, there's 80-something competitors that are drafted. There weren't 80-something competitors last year that competed
no way.
in the
Yeah.
So my initial thought of not needing to be drafted to play and not taking it as seriously kind of all went out the window the day after the draft. The day of the draft.
Quick
really.
turnaround.
Yeah, pretty quick turnaround. Kate had a lot more confidence in me than I think that anyone else would have at that point in time. I think that from what I've heard from some of the other managers, some of the other competitors, both me and Adam impressed people, and Adam really freaking impressed me. That 5-pointer, I think.
I want to definitely ask you about that once we get to your match, because we were shocked that anybody would know that answer outside of someone like Alex Damon.
I know Alex knew that one. I know that there's probably a few other ones that Alex didn't know, because I do know, I do know that there are. Alex does have his Achilles heel.
That's fair.
Alex does have weak spots. You just have to find them. The same thing's true with anyone else in the division. I remember in the Iron Man match. I don't know if you guys are. I've seen every Star Wars match.
Knapsack and Whitwer. Yes.
Yeah, Knapsack Whitwer. So the question was, what does LAAT stand for? Which is the Republic gunship. And both Sam and Ken blanked on it. So that kind of thing, I don't know. Which it's weird for me that Sam would miss that. Not as weird for me that, or was it Sam? Yeah, I'm talking about. Yeah, so it's weird to me that Sam and Ken would both miss that question. It's to me, which I think we're all the same, more or less same age, late 20s, early 30s.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for me, growing up with the prequels, And being a huge Star Wars fan growing up, all of all of the prequel vehicles and
It's
stuff.
more similar.
Yeah.
That's what that was my first love. So that's what I'm locked into. Of course, I know all the original trilogy stuff, but I got to grow up alongside the prequels. So I think that gives me a lot more, knowledge of that stuff. And then you watch Sam and Ken, who both are two of the biggest Star Wars fans I know. I mean, not that I know Sam, but
Yes,
you know what I mean.
yes.
Two of the biggest Star Wars fans I can think of, as far as passion goes, and they looked at whoever was on the desk like it was Mark and Christian, like, what the hell is wrong with you? What kind of question is that? The same thing with Dane Gier. I've seen. I think it was. I know Damon missed a question about Dane Gier, who's some random freaking Imperial in the beginning of Episode 4. Which there's an easy way to remember it because one of his only lines is it's too dangerous to keep her alive, or keep her captive, whatever he says at the beginning of Episode 4. So his name's Dane Gier. But even Damon's like, I've never heard of this person. I didn't know they existed. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of people saying after that match that, Adam and I aren't going to be able to take on Damon. Everyone else in the league has studied for way longer, and especially Damon, he lives it. Adam and I didn't really have a whole lot of studying before that match. We knew the match was coming. We didn't know when. We actually were the date we filmed, we were originally scheduled to film that day, and then it was put on hold for another match.
Someone got sick, right?
So the match that we were replaced with was not the match that got canceled, from what I understand.
Got it.
But yeah, someone on one of the factions got sick. Their match had to be canceled. I don't know if I can say which. I know it's been said before, but let's just say you're getting a live stream out of it instead.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's enough information. But so, I woke up that morning and I'm driving to the studio because reasons. And we're in the car. I get a call from Kate Mulligan, and she's like, "Hey, I just talked to Christian. He wants you guys to compete today. Can you do it?" And my response was, "Well, I can't really say no. Being a rookie, I just simply can't tell Christian no." So
exactly.
Right. So both Adam and I, we knew we were having the match. We were originally scheduled for the date, and then 2 weeks prior it was, "Hey, we're going to put this on hold." I kind of did the math and mapped out the schedule, and I was like, well, if this taping date is not my match, the soonest I will have my match is going to be X date. I'm going to take a week off from studying.
That's what we talked about when we heard about this. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was just like, hey, you know what? Taking a week off. I'll get back into it. I studied a certain subset before everything was canceled or put on hold. And none of that subset came up.
Of course.
I studied I studied my weaknesses, and luckily none of them. One of them came up, and that's Clone Wars, which I had seen Clone Wars 15 times now since draft day. You just have to watch it on repeat and suck it up. But yeah, I mean, what was the question?
You're good. You were talking about just the way that it all played out, and kind of under the lights and the nerves, and leading into the match, and kind of what happened, and
yeah. And I have the Heel of the Year award here now. So I don't know if you can see this on camera. But so this is the Andrew Guy
that is awesome.
Heel of the Year award.
So awesome.
all signed, and I'm actually trying to give it back to Andrew. So we, Andrew is a busy guy. He hasn't been at a whole lot of tapings. The reason I said I had to text my girlfriend to go get it, it's been in the car so that we can give it back to him.
That's fair.
Because it's kind of lost a little bit of its. It's not that it's not completely special, but we talked about it, and the point where we got it being fans, and the point where where we are now, we see these people all the time.
Yeah.
It's strange to me now to have something signed by people that I spend my Saturdays with.
That's wild.
That's very true.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll know that one day, but
yeah.
I can definitely see from coming from you. So,
well, look at as far as that goes, you guys have an interesting format to the podcast. In that, I think Call to Action very much has that. They're playing a character in their standard. In the Call to Action pod, they're playing a character. In the Chill to Action pod, it's a completely different setup as far as what they talk about, how they talk about it. Andrew DiMolanta, as much as he wants to do like a breakdown style podcast, he can't have an episode without being tied to faction.
Yes.
And I love Andrew. I love Andrew, but you can definitely see the faction bias in his podcast. I don't know who else out there. Take Three.
Cinefanatics.
I will be honest.
Movies, all those guys.
Kristen. I love Cinefanatics. I don't know that I've seen Jaw movies. There's so many out there, but it's as long as each one is carving out a different niche, and you guys want to very much take it from the sports angle, and that I think is good, because aside from the Rundown, there isn't really anything that does it. And if I'm being honest, the Rundown kind of does it more at a wrestling sports angle.
I like that.
They're talking about the storylines a lot more. You guys are looking at the faction points and all that, and I think that's a better niche to be in as far as a new Schmoedown podcast. Because I'll be honest with you, none of the competitors have time to watch this stuff.
That's fair.
If they're studying
as
much as. So, I know a bunch of them watch Call to Action, but that's because that's how they ended up involved, was through Action. Janine and Brandon were all involved through Action, and Smets is real close with Janine and Brandon, and I don't know if I should say all this stuff. Maybe this should be.
They're always together on Twitter.
Don't reveal too much, but I mean,
on Twitter we always
like you said, it's not like they watch it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Kevin, Kevin and I are very close, and Brandon and I are getting a lot closer, being in the same faction, being more or less in the same niche as far as Star Wars Inner Geekdom, being I can speak English, tangentially related, and I was an English major at some point. Look at me. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely such an interesting peek behind the curtain as far as how it all goes. Really seeing who's dedicated to it, and seeing the peek behind the curtain as far as which managers are there every taping, and which managers are there for their matches, which managers aren't there for their matches.
There's one big one, that's for sure.
No, I will say, Robert Meyer
exactly.
Robert Meyer Burnett does care a lot more than you would think.
Okay.
Now, whether he knows what he's doing is a whole other question, but he does care, which is important.
Yeah. He was the one person I talked to probably the most.
Yeah, Brian and him had definitely a good length conversation at the awards.
Yeah, and it was a lot of, this is all because of me, but I mean, it was still.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Well, yeah. He's a very sweet person.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he wants to know your story, and he wants to hear it, and he will walk away from that happier for having learned about you as a person, and because again, when I first met RMB, it was as just some random person at the taping, which there are less and less of now. But it's I'm rambling now.
You're good. Let's get into your match a little bit, because we were talking in the lead up to this, trying to schedule you. You had said the two things that you had mentioned were the two questions you missed in the first round. Kind of just ones that may have just been the only questions. You are correct. Just a little bit of brain farts. Was that have to do with just maybe the beginning of the match, under the lights, not really thinking it through?
So, a couple things happened. So, my first question, I heard the question, which is the most ridiculous question I've heard in the Star Wars League, the Boss Nass question. And when I heard it, I was like, this has got to be Boss Nass, but it can't be that easy. It can't be that easy. So I got it right. And then the someday you're going to be wrong, and I just hope I'm around to see it. The line hit me, and I went, okay, I love this line. It's one of my favorite lines, but who the hell said it? And it was just nerves. Like, I can tell you, it's Leia says it. Yeah. It's Empire Strikes Back. I remember it. So that one was entirely nerves. My brain just couldn't get to that point. The Jawa question is a whole other thing. So context clues tell me, okay, well, obviously this is Jawas, right? And I remember a scene in A New Hope where Obi-Wan and Luke are in Mos Eisley and shooing the Jawas away from the speeder.
Oh, okay.
So I asked my buddy the day after the match. I saw some of my friends, and I asked them. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna ask you a question. What's the answer?" And I gave him the question, and he said, "Oh, it's Jawas. It's in Mos Eisley."
Huh. Interesting.
So him and I went back and found the scene. We're both wrong. The scene happens, but they're not. The way I remembered it was Obi-Wan and Luke walking up to the speeder and shooing the Jawas away. The Jawas walk up while they're in the speeder.
Okay.
At no point in that match did I want to challenge anything, but that question I kind of thought, can I challenge this? I know that it happens. I don't know if I'm right about how it happens.
Interesting.
Because I remembered the scene. The question is, what species picks through the contents of the land speeder? They weren't picking through the contents, so I would have lost the challenge. But my brain went there. Now, if I'd used a repeat, I think that I would have gotten to, obviously they're rooting through the land speeder after knocking out Luke. But I don't know. I just went to Jawa, and I do feel pretty okay with that being a question I missed, because my brain got to a point to answer the question, whether or not it got to the right spot. As long as I didn't blank out on it.
So you had mentioned that you were thinking about possibly challenging and kind of running through the idea of it. Now with Kate, obviously managers have a big impact with the challenging go around. Her not knowing Star Wars as much as you do, how much does that play into the idea of you challenging it?
Kate, I will tell you, is a diehard Star Wars fan. As of when we're taping this, it's her birthday.
It is, yes.
And she is spending her birthday going
awesome.
Star Wars.
All right, well, good to know. There we go.
Now, granted, she's spending it going to Disneyland, but I assume she's going to go to Star Wars Land. But obviously, Kate does not know nearly as much as any of the Star Wars competitors do. But the way challenges work this season is a little bit interesting. So, behind the scenes at least. So, I believe that if there's something I legitimately want to challenge, I can flag Kate to challenge it. Kate has to be the one to deliver the challenge. the other thing is any of my faction mates can also tell Kate to challenge it.
Interesting.
So it doesn't have to be Kate that decides it's a challenge. Now, granted, the only person I think that would challenge something in that regard is Brandon Hanna, just based on who's going to be in the studio. So it's going to be, me, Rachel, and Brandon are in the studio at all times. Alex Marzonia and Ben Goddard are both there too, but they're both working. They can't act in, so they can't act in player standpoints. So, if something needs to be challenged, I believe I can flag to Kate or Grace, but also my faction mates can do it. So that's kind of a double-edged sword with which factions have people going to tapings and which factions have people going to matches. I have more to say on it that I can't.
That's fair.
How that's relevant. But yeah, so it's not as bad. Roxy was thrown around that, how does Tom the whole discussion with Atlanta, which we'll get into later, I know, but how does Tom challenge something? Well, Tom doesn't have to. Ben can signal to Tom to challenge. It's not entirely dependent on Tom knowing his stuff, because if it was, Roxy doesn't know any movie trivia.
Yeah.
Tom knows more movie than Roxy knows.
God, what I wouldn't give for her to have Kate to have a red challenge flag in her fanny pack to pull out and throw.
I wouldn't put it by her. I would give. That would be pretty to see a red flag flying out of the camera.
Flies through the camera. I would give anything.
That is very true.
I'm convinced that thing's bottomless because that she pulled out the grenade.
Side question with the grenade: what kind of whiskey was in the grenade?
That was something called Rock and Rye, which is this. I'm a sucker for an old fashioned.
You and me both.
I have a full bar in the living room, and that's the one thing that I always make sure I have supplies for, is to make an old fashioned. I don't keep my bar very well stocked, but I always have rye whiskey, simple syrup, bitters, all that. I was going to go restock that, and I saw this bottle in the flavored whiskey section, and it said Rock and Rye, and I read it, and it was rock candy, honey, bitters, and rye whiskey.
Whoa.
And it just tastes like an old-fashioned straight out of the jar. So I just chill it, I pour it into the jar, pour it into a glass, and I drink that instead of making an old-fashioned. Now, granted, I will make one occasionally, but it just makes it a lot easier. I've got a little side room with a mini fridge that I study and paint and whatever in. So when I want whiskey, I just reach the mini fridge. It's ready to go. I don't have to go out to the bar and make it.
Yes, stocked with thermal detonators. Good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
So, and then as far as initially, I had another gimmick that I was going to do. It did involve alcohol, but because there was no planning, I couldn't go get what I needed to make it. So we just, when I found out I had my match, we actually turned around and drove back home so that I can change into something to be on camera. Because, I was just in
something comfortable.
Yeah. I was just in something to go hang out, and being on camera, maybe I should put, some care into how I look on camera. So at that point, I'm like, crap, what can I bring with me as a sort of prop? And, because Kate generally comes up with what she pulls out of her fanny pack.
Sounds right.
But again, because it was on short notice, she was like, oh, and I got to get something to go pull out of the fanny pack. And because she went home to go change into the Irish step dancing skirt. No, she was in Kate garb, but she didn't have the step. So if you look, she's actually dressed different in my match than she is in any other match. She's wearing a step dancing skirt.
Oh,
she did come out
Yeah, I noticed the same shirt, but now that I think about it, I did see the skirt. Yeah, because she had you pick her leg up in the entrance.
That was all Kate. But so Kate came up with what to pull out of the fanny, and for all of the other den matches that have aired so far, for mine, because it was short notice when we were on the phone, she's like, and I need to go change my skirt, and I need to go get something to pull out of the fanny pack. And I said, don't worry, I'll give you something to pull out. She's like, okay, I'm trusting you. So I got home, I'm like, crap, what can I pull out? And I'm like, well, I want a drink to calm my nerves a little bit. So I just grabbed, I have one of the Coke cans from Disney, and I'm like, screw it, we're using that. So, okay, the match. We're getting.
You're good. So, we talked about the 2 questions you missed, and from there, you went 3 for 3 to end the round, and Adam missed 1, and he went 2 for 3, and the round ended with him winning by 1 or beating you by 1, 5 to 4, and then round 2 comes along, and he spins solo a Star Wars story for his round, right. And from the first question, he misses the Enfys Nest question. You get that 2-point steal. And it kind of just like swings the door open, and the momentum completely shifted and kind of went your way. Did it feel like that?
I will give credit where credit's due, because it actually swung before that. So Ben Goddard has mentioned it a couple times. There's a point in the match where, after I missed the Tusken Raider question, yes. I was looking to one side and kind of shifted my vision to the other side. And Ben Goddard is there on the sidelines, and his job is keeping time. So he does the countdown when you see Mark or Christian or whoever say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's actually Goddard doing it. He's just really good at throwing his voice. But he is the one with the timer. He kind of like looks at me and just like, breathe, relax, you got this. And so that was where I first kind of like recentered myself, and him missing a question in round 1 was the turning point.
The hyperdrive motivator, right?
Right, because my fear was that I was going to miss a question or miss 2 questions, and him not miss any in round 1, and then be up by 3 points going into round 2 because he's got the perfect.
Yeah.
Because when you look at past Star Wars matches, everyone gets perfect rounds.
That's very true.
But with all that, I mean, going around to getting that steal. And I will say with the hyperdrive motivator, you can actually watch, if you go back and watch, you can see me almost erase motivator. I wrote hyperdrive motivator, and then go, nope, okay, I'm good. Time ran out before I could erase it.
Both of us wrote down hyperdrive, and we were like, we got this. But then they said it, and we could go, wow. Well, I mean, look, Star Wars, you have to be detailed. Like, everything has to be so detailed, because the wording and everything and just how it all operates, that's just what it requires. And so that's where the whiteboard and the writing is so key.
A letter and you're wrong.
Exactly.
Well, I worry that they're going to get to the point where they're asking what like the official name for the A-Wing is, or the official name for the Y-Wing, which is like a 7-digit, alphanumeric. Yeah. It's BTLA4 Y-Wing dash something. Like,
damn Dave.
I know it from you can see behind me my shelf of random crap. I'm a big role-playing games guy. I know all the ship models from playing the Star Wars role-playing game.
Got it.
Smart.
But I don't expect, nor do I want, Ken Knapsack or Laura Kelly to have to go learn all those ship names. That's not interesting trivia.
Except for AV-21s, right?
Well, yes, and you can actually even see I'm like, oh, the answer is M6. In my head, I'm like, oh, M68. That's the answer. So when I go, I don't know, speeders, I just needed to throw an answer out there, and I didn't really know, but yeah, him missing the AV-21s and him missing the Enfys Nest question, which obviously he knew, just misheard. that's kind of the that was the turning point. And then it after that, I don't think I missed a single question.
You didn't miss anything. You spun Return of the Jedi, and you went 5 for 5. You had 3 2-point answers. There's so many categories in Star Wars, and it's all based on movies. Is Return of the Jedi one of your stronger ones, or
without giving away secrets?
Don't give away any secrets.
Anything. Well, I don't think it's much to give away. I think that this is true for all the Star Wars competitors. Prequels and original trilogy is, or at least original trilogy is everyone's strength. The question is, how deep are those questions going to go? So I didn't have. You'll hear singles and teams competitors talk about, if I get multiple choice or if I get spinner's choice, what category am I going to pick? I don't think that's true in Star Wars, because you don't know. There's 10 slices and 12 movies. Weapons, vehicles, and technology isn't on there anymore. Heroes and villains isn't on there anymore. I wish they were, but it's kind of just, what movie do you feel confident on? I would have spun away from any sequel and any. I might not have spun away from Force Awakens, but I would have spun away from Last Jedi. I would have spun away from Clone Wars, and I would have spun away from both Rogue One and Solo.
So any of the Disney movies.
Right, because they're not ingrained in my head. I know them, I love them, but they're not reflexive. I've seen some people say, well, he had to go multiple choice in round 2. I knew both those answers. I went to multiple choice because in my head, the first question was who asks accelerate to attack, or who calls to accelerate to attack speed. And I went, okay, it's either Lando Calrissian or Wedge Antilles. If I say Lando and I'm wrong, and Adam gets Wedge, that's 2 points that I don't want to give him. So I was okay with going to multiple choice just to rule out the chance of him stealing. Same thing on the who picked up Princess Leia's helmet. The question, I knew it's either going to be Han or Luke. I'm about 90% sure it's Luke. Let's go multiple choice, so that if I'm wrong, it drops down to 1 point, and he's not tying or getting a lead on me. So that was kind of the thought process there. But as far as that, Return of the Jedi, I'd say, is a bit of a stronger category, just due to the fact that it was my favorite movie as a kid. So I've seen it, way more than anything else.
Cool little secret here. Brian absolutely despises Return of the Jedi.
Not one of my favorites.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that here's the thing, and this is going into the Star Wars fandom, overall. I am okay with people hating Star Wars movies.
Oh, I don't.
I'm okay with people.
It's not one of my favorites.
No, but I get it, right? Like, I'm okay with the people that hate The Last Jedi. I'm okay with people that hate Rise of Skywalker. I personally hate some of the movies. I won't say which, because then you'll have people going at me for the other. But it makes sense to me why people dislike Jedi. It makes sense to me why Mark Ellis loves Jedi. It makes sense to me why people dislike Rogue One. No, actually, that one doesn't.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
When you said that, I was like, what?
Yeah, we should have a conversation with Ben Goddard about that. But
seriously.
I understand why people don't like Solo. Solo is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, because it dives so deep into the random minutia, and it's a gold mine for Schmoedown questions. So, it is what it is. Probably gonna have to watch it about 300 times.
So you came out of round 2 with a 4-point lead, and it all landed on Adam Witt, and he had to answer all 3 of his questions to have any kind of chance at this with a good amount of lead. And he answered 2 of the 3 correct. The one he missed was the attachment leads to what, and he answered with the dark side when it was jealousy. And look, for me, as we were playing along, it's one of 4 answers, because you get that saying of it leads to this and it leads to this and it leads to this. Did you know that question?
I would have to go back and look at how it's asked. It depends, because for me, it depends on which movie it's from.
It's
right?
Revenge of the Sith, and the question was, in Revenge of the Sith, Yoda says, attachment leads to what?
Yeah, I think that obviously I know the answer now.
Yeah, that's
so
true. That's true.
I can say I knew it or I didn't. I don't remember if I knew it. I remember hearing the question and thinking, oh, I'm glad I don't have to answer this question for the exact reason you said. It's one of four quotes. Which quote do you have in your head? Yoda says that same line in, I think, every movie he's in, or close to it. Something leads to something else. I don't know if I would have known that or not. I want to say that I would have, because Revenge of the Sith is another movie that I've seen more than the others. But it's not shocking that someone would get that wrong to me just based on the fact that, there's the same quote is said different ways. Was that?
That was Siri for Brian's phone.
Okay. But as far as as far as I'll get to it before you do. His 5 point.
Yeah, it's Brian was just going to get into that. I mean, look, this is something, even if I would have been studying Star Wars, I don't know if I could have ever answered this question. Yeah. It is crazy.
That is the hardest thing about this division is you have to look for the answers in order to study them. So I'm just going to assume here the way Andrew DiMolanta studies, because I know that he is probably the one Star Wars competitor that has the most studying this season under his belt. From what he's talked about, he's revealed on his podcast and on other podcasts what his study method is. I have a feeling that he goes and watches the movie, pauses, and forces himself to find the name of every character on screen.
Wow.
Dulce Dauphine is a character that, as far as I'm aware, is not named anywhere in that movie. I think he is named in the Clone Wars, but linking that character from the Clone Wars and the character from Episode 1 is a pretty far stretch for me. Adam in his post interview joked about, I know Lot Dodd, I know, Rune Hacko. I know those ones too. I don't know. I've never heard of Dulce Dauphine before.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I remember watching DiMolanta and Kelly last year going into this spectacular. They had that one question about Wedge Antilles and how his name, and I think Laura had answered the question the way that he was named in a book, and Andrew had challenged it. And so it seems like there's a fine line between canon and what's in the movies, because there's almost like a crossover a little bit.
Yeah, I will reveal one of the questions I wrote down yesterday. I have a file full of every pilot's call sign.
Smart.
So something that has been asked before is, what was Obi-Wan's call sign during the Battle of Coruscant? It has been asked before. The answer is Red Leader. The question is, what is Anakin's call sign? Is not said in the movie. Red Leader is said in the movie.
And wow.
So what's Anakin's call sign?
What do they even? They don't even say it in the movie, do they?
They don't say it. They don't say it. But I've found an answer.
Is it in the Revenge of the Sith novelization?
It's in the Revenge of the Sith novelization. And it's in the Labyrinth of Evil book.
Huh.
He is Red 5.
Whoa, that's cool.
So Obi-Wan's Red Leader. Cool. He's Red 5. So I texted another competitor from another faction, and said, "Hey, do you have the answer to this? I can't find the answer to this." And this isn't a Star Wars competitor; it's just someone that I know knows Star Wars. I was like, "Hey, I need, I found this answer. I want to see if you have this confirmed anywhere. What can you tell me?" and his response was simply, "There's no way it's Red 5. That's way too corny."
Of course, right?
And I'm like, "No, it's in Labyrinth of Evil, and it's in the novelization." He's like, "Oh my god! All right, that's going in my notes." But like, I don't know if that question will ever get asked.
Yeah.
I know that the question writers, I know that one of them has read Labyrinth of Evil. I know that question writer has read most of the novelizations for the Star Wars books. So whether or not that becomes a question is something that kind of has to keep you up at night as a Star Wars competitor. How deep do you make your study guides? And I've seen a comment from Andrew that said, and I keep using him as an example, but he's the only other Star Wars competitor that's really active in discussing it. Laura Kelly, she's got her own stuff going on. Ken doesn't really talk about the Schmoedown outside of Schmoedown. Scrimshaw is kind of separate. It's me and Andrew who talk about the Schmoedown and interact with the Schmoedown as far as the Star Wars competitors go. And then obviously Adam, but Adam's not a Star Wars competitor. He's a competitor that does way too much in this league, and I think he's going to kill it this year in every league. But as far as I love Adam as a person, so I have to say that we spent several weeks leading up to it talking about our match, even though we had no idea when it was going to be. But Andrew had made a comment on his stream the other day or his podcast the other day, that he thinks that some of the Star Wars competitors are going to be studying too many minute facts and not enough context.
Makes sense.
The thing is, the context we all know. We all know the context. We've all seen all the movies enough times to know the context. The minute facts are what's going to trip someone up who doesn't know that stuff. If you lose 2 points on AV21, that can cost you a match. Which I will comment on this. What I've seen a lot of people say about that match: the game better. If Adam had just played the game better. Okay, but if I wouldn't have gone to multiple choice, which was a strategy decision, not a needing multiple choice, if I would have stuck with 2 points on those 2 questions and not hedging against him catching up, the difference between a player who was not a Schmoedown fan and a player who, I've watched this for 5 years. I know the game better than some of the competitors. I made a choice to go to multiple choice in order to protect keep my score where it was. If you want to say, if Adam would have only gone, not missed that question that he got, that he misheard, well, yeah, but that's the game.
Yeah.
Is it a game? The question I think that a lot of fans need to ask themselves right now is, do you want it to be pure trivia or do you want it to be a game? Because those are two very different things, right? And I think that that's the story of Atlanta as a whole, right? I mean, you have Ben Bateman being the game player, and you have Dan Merle, who is the trivia guy. You have two completely different thoughts on how to take the Schmoedown, and if you watch fan reactions to this stuff, that's the question that I think really needs to be asked this season is, do we want it to be trivia or do we want it to be a game? Because they're not the same thing. You need both. You need both in order to succeed in this show. But which one's more important? Because you can't say, well, if Adam only played the game better, because clearly I missed my 2 easy questions in round 1. He's had 4 matches.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just something that I wanted to make sure I got out there, just because I had seen, I've watched the reactions. I know people say don't read the comments. People say don't do all that. I can't help it. I want to see. I want to part of it. Call it. Oh God, I can't think of the word. But just I want to see how I wanted to see how it was being received in order to see my next match. do I need to do? But yeah, so I've seen pretty much every reaction, which is probably unhealthy for something.
I'm sure as you play more, it'll probably maybe slow down a little bit, and you'll get used to it, and start to kind of just feel like you don't need to do that anymore. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, and even in my post interview, the question of, am I, people are like, oh, he's really cocky. Is he supposed to be a heel? Well, yeah, I'm supposed to be a heel. I'm not very good at it. The Den is supposed to be a heel faction. It has been since it was the Lion's Den, years ago. So I'm not very good at it. You look at someone like Ben Goddard, who takes to it like water. Brandon Hanna's been a heel for a year. Rachel is doing just fine as a heel, and Tom legitimately has a dead body. I've seen it. So yeah, there's that. But I mean, that I think is my biggest takeaway from the match. Isn't anything about the trivia, anything about the game. It's about being mentally ready. And I wasn't mentally ready for this, for this match. So, and that's on no fault of anyone but myself. I shouldn't have taken a week off. Fair. I should have prepped for it as if it was, but ultimately I can say everything I want. I came out as a winner. So, if anything, if people think I'm not ready for the league, it's a good thing, right? I mean, they're going to under-prepare, or they're going to, take me for granted.
Yeah.
So
we never know. Christian might have just pulled a fast one on you to really test you and see what really you're capable of in the division.
The thought crossed my mind. I think, I mean, there's even Roca, I think, said it yesterday on Chill to Action.
He did.
That maybe it was yesterday or today on Backstage. Was he didn't know he was competing. He jokes about finding me by the dumpster. I smoke, so I was out by the dumpster smoking, because that's where he smoked at the studio. So I just like hearing him say, well, I found him by the dumpster.
Classic Roca. That's classic Roca. So I will say one thing before Brian wants to say something too. We both enjoyed the heel side of it towards the end of the match in the post interview. I'll say that.
Well, because we weren't expecting.
We were not expecting it at all. But now that you give this kind of like a behind the scenes look at it all, it does make sense. And I mean, not that we were caught off guard, but now we're kind of looking forward to seeing what happens and kind of how it all goes down.
Well, I love me a heel. I love a bad guy.
Yeah, he's a villain guy through and through. So.
I don't know how much I'll lean into it as far as the character stuff goes. One of the big things with Star Wars is there isn't anyone playing a character.
Mm-hmm. True.
There's Adam and I both were kind of playing exaggerated versions of ourselves, because that's what Adam's character is. That's what, to an extent, that's what my character is. Ken is playing the pit boss, who is this, blustering,
Ken is Ken.
Ken. But aside from that, I mean, Damon doesn't have a character. He probably never will. He's gotten a little bit better as far as the, you could see it in Atlanta. He's gotten a little bit better as far as the confidence and how to treat himself in the post interview. I had no idea what I was doing. The pre-interviews, that's about, the pre-interviews are 2 minutes long, and that's combined. We were in there for 10 minutes. So for that's really whatever Nerd Chronic Eric decides to cut out of that, to make it what it is. I love that guy. He's so good at his job. It's funny being in that room. It's Nerd Chronic, and it's Dwayne and Dwayne Burke, who is one of the camera guys, who's fantastic at his job. But who I both become pretty close with. I tend to become close with the crew sooner than I become close with the
That's something
the talent.
I would probably do.
Yeah. Well, we can. I'm sure you guys want to get this moving, but I used to work in music promotion for for local bands, and so I spent a lot of time with the crew. I was friends with the people on stage, but they're on stage. I'm with the crew, So I think that's where that mentality comes from. My roommate was a sound engineer, my first roommate, and so that. I think those people I understand a little bit better than the on-stage person.
That's fair. That's something I would definitely do if I was ever in that position.
Oh, you would 100%. Yeah.
I think any podcaster has to, right? Yes. Any podcaster of our age has to, because you have to teach yourself how to do this stuff. Do you know how long it took me to figure out on my lunch today how to download Skype and get my webcam to work?
Probably as long as it would take me.
Because I've never done it before. I say this, and I have a job that involves technology and involves setting up technology, but I can't figure out how to work a dang computer to run.
Well, we got it working, and we're definitely having fun doing it. So
yeah.
I had one more question before we get to Atlanta. Is when you were in the situation where Witt had to answer that 5-pointer, and it was we were looking at each other like, there's no one knows this. Absolutely no one knows that. Did you start to feel like, yes, I got this, it's over, and then he hits it and you're like, oh crap, it kind of...
You know what? So I'm glad you asked that, because yes, I had a moment where my biggest fear was losing this match, because the fact of the matter is, as a rookie, if I lost that match, and if I lost that match the way that I could have, missing those first two round one questions, I would not have gotten another match, at least not in the Star Wars ever, probably, to be honest with you. Because there's enough people who want to compete and who can compete. If Adam loses, Adam's not going anywhere. Adam is in the dungeon. Adam is a singles competitor, a teams competitor. So what it came down to when that 5-pointer was asked and Adam asked for the repeats, well, first off, when they asked the question, I'm like, it might be Rune Hako, but I don't think it is. Maybe Adam knows it, maybe he doesn't. And then I thought about it, I'm like, no, it's not Rune Hako. It was another guy. I doubt Adam knows it. Because Adam and I had talked the previous however many tapings, about what we love about, just as Adam is someone who very much wants to share his love with movies and with whatever he wants to. So we had talked about it, and he's like, I'm not going to waste time learning, this, that, and the other thing. And it's not like he was trying to, throw me off his scent. Adam was one of the first people I met through the Schmoedown. The first taping I went to, Adam and Paul Preston were there, and this was before they had ever had a match. They were like, yeah, we think we're going to, do this. And, they're super nice guys. They're super warm. They're super friendly. So, Adam and I were talking about, just Star Wars in general. So when that question got asked, I kind of went, all right, this is one of those that he was talking about that he's not going to learn. And sure enough, he did. Right? He, it was back there somewhere. I don't know how he got there. I don't know how that got in his brain in the first place, because you really have to, like I said before, that's a question you have to go find the answer to. You have to want to go, what's that guy's name? Where do I find it? And then write it down and memorize it. But yeah, the thought of when he didn't have it, the thought of getting a TKO on my first match in Star Wars, I'm sure we can ask someone, but how many TKOs have there been in Star Wars?
Not a lot.
Probably
there's not a lot.
For you to none.
Yeah.
Bruce Green got KO'd. But aside from that, I don't know that anyone's been TKO'd outside of the Five Ways, which have their own set of parameters and rules that are beside the point. But so yeah, it felt good just because the thought of getting a TKO on my first match would have been fantastic. But at the same time, I didn't want to go out without having to answer a question. Because in my last round, because I needed to show that I could have that accuracy. With less questions in a Star Wars match, it affects your accuracy more.
That's true.
So if you compare any Star Wars match this year to one last year, the accuracies are going to be way skewed. So I think as far, not that I really cared about the stats, right? When it comes down to it, I want to win. I don't care about what my overall accuracy is.
Winners are winners. Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to, it's a show. It's a show, and you have to survive the court of public opinion as much as you have to win your match. So TKO would have sounded good on paper. I don't know how good it would have looked.
That's fair.
If I didn't, with missing what I did, I don't know how good it would have looked. People are already looking at that match and talking about how great Adam Witt is going to be in this division, and I'm stoked about that because I don't want look at everyone's record in Star Wars. Everyone has losses on their record, even Damon. You have to. The division is so small. You have to have the losses. And I'm just glad that there's not anyone leaving the division based on record. So
no, that's good, and that's one thing that definitely helped Adam and answer that question. As far as we look at it with the points, the point for the TKO was taken away.
Yeah,
and they didn't have that, or the Den didn't get that many points compared to the Dungeon in that situation. So from that standard, that obviously would have helped. But for Adam, that's definitely a big plus for him. So.
Yeah, I know, because you and I were like, "Oh yes, he's got this in the bag," and then he pulled that question.
We were shocked.
That answer, we were like, "What?"
Yeah, we couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Well, with the point values, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. The Dens had more matches than anyone else. That's going to even out. It's not favoritism. It's not anything else. It's just scheduling. The fact of the matter is, it's easier to schedule multiple matches for a faction at once, as far as, filming goes. So, it's going to even out. Now, will the scoreboard even out? That's another question. Kaiser has had 2 matches air now. And still can't win anything. But I mean, it's the TKO points are, I think, what will make or break this season. I think as far as the point values this season go, I think it's either going to be TKOs or it will be Inner Geek from Star Wars.
It makes sense.
Because they're worth more points. I mean, singles, yeah, sure, there's matches all the time. There's also more singles competitors. There's not going to be a singles competitor that will win, whatever it is we're winning at the end of the year. Whatever it is,
the secret prize.
There won't be
right
a singles.
now. Yeah.
Right, the secret, whatever they've cooked up. There's not going to be a singles competitor that wins that, because the fact of the matter is, you look at teams, you look at teams and Inner Geekdom and Star Wars. Realistically, there's more singles competitors than anything else. So any one singles competitor is not going to have as many matches as, even potentially a Star Wars competitor. If, I don't know what my track is going to look like as far as if I can get to Damon, if, Christian already has my track to Damon mapped out. As far as who I'm competing, I know the fans want me to compete against Ken.
That's what I want to see.
I know some fans want me to compete against Andrew. I'm sure Christian has something cooked up, but the fact of the matter is, with as many competitors as we have, in Star Wars, with as many competitors as we have in Inner Geekdom, there's a lot, but it pales in comparison to how many singles competitors there are. So that's just my overall thought is. But I guess when you look at it, when I say there's more singles competitors than anything else. A lot of those singles competitors are also teams competitors. So I guess maybe I've dug myself a hole of logic.
You're good. But yeah, so.
When,
no, you're good.
Next, yeah.
Let's go ahead and move into Atlanta. We will take the next 20 minutes or so to kind of talk about, dive into it, because Alex Damon, obviously making his debut in Inner Geekdom, does have an effect on Star Wars, possibly bleeding into one another, and how that kind of that competes. But as far as how he did, I mean, he ended up beating Emily Rose Jacobson and showing some pretty good ability to answer some Inner Geekdom questions in that match. But I will say this, by watching it, you can definitely tell that there are some weak spots of his in this league. In no way is, a lot of fans are calling for Smets versus Damon. They want that, but he has a long way to go to get there. And we can go round by round here, but Jacobson spun opponent's choice. Jacobson gave him Harry Potter, and he went 4 for 5 in that round, which for Harry Potter, that's really good because that's a difficult category. And then she spins her choice and goes Star Trek, and unfortunately she gets 3 for 5, but Damon gets a 2-point steal, and that's just kind of where the wheels started falling off a little bit. Before I get to you, Sean, real quick, Brian, because Damon is your favorite player. He is your guy in the league. What do you think about how he debuted in Inner Geekdom?
I thought he made a solid foundation, but I definitely saw the kinks in the armor. Mm-hmm. It definitely showed that he is not this untouchable god in everything he does, and I think that could possibly power people up a little bit more to take him down.
He missed the very first question. He missed the MCU question with Guardians of he answered Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was Iron Man 3. The biggest thing for me is that when I watch this, I would love to see him make a run, but my big question is how does it affect his run in Star Wars? Because doing 2 divisions is a big deal, and he's not going to have his focus just on that anymore.
And I think that's going to make him vulnerable
to.
He's not going to have as many matches because he's across the country, but who knows if the burnout of studying 2 different things is going to lead to an advantage for some other people.
How do you feel about it, Sean?
Honestly, I don't know that it will, and here's why. I have my doubts as to how much Alex Damon actually studies for Star Wars.
I don't think he studies at all.
I don't think he studies at all. Exactly. I think he just knows it. I think that he just engages with it every day, and sure, maybe he has note cards or a cheat sheet or the various other ways that we all study for this stuff. Maybe he has something that he goes to in order to prep, but I don't think he's studying in the same way that Kevin Smets is, in the same way that DiMolanta is for Star Wars. I think that he is probably just going with his gut and supplementing his Inner Geekdom studying with Star Wars. I don't know the guy. I don't know. I've met him a couple times. I've talked to him a few times. I don't know how well he is. I don't know how well Roxy set him up as far as how to study or what to study. I mean, we know Roxy probably has learned something on that matter from Ben at some point. But I don't think it will take away from his Star Wars prowess that much. As much as I'd like to say it would, I don't think it will. I think Alex is the final boss, and I think we're all doomed to, constantly have him at the end of the rainbow.
Let me ask you this though: if Damon and Whitwer were to go against each other right now, who would you put your money on?
In an Iron Man match, like he wants to.
In an Iron Man match, that's different. Sam Whitwer.
And inside the actual Schmoedown itself?
In a Schmoedown match, Alex
Yeah,
Damon.
those are two very different
Because
things,
Sam Witwer does not know Schmoedown.
that's
Even when he was competing, even when he was the champion, he didn't know the rules. He knew them enough, but yeah, he just doesn't know the game the same way that someone like Alex, who's now done a live event twice a year, last year.
Yeah,
But
so good debut for him. Definitely going to see him more because, he is the Star Wars champion making his run in Nagita. But let's get to the big one here, the main event of the night. Bateman versus Merle. Everyone was touting it as the match of the league, the match
Century.
of the entire thing for the entire time the Schmoedown has been running. And, people can argue one way or another, but I felt like it was leading up to that, the way it was kind of just... with Nerd Chronic's promos and the Twitter conversations and obviously all the drama with the FinSock Exchange and the lead up with that as well. But as far as a match goes, it lived up to the hype. It went back and forth. Merle had the lead for the first 2 rounds, and then Bateman got round 3 and round 4 with the Tyler Perry movies, and then the speed round where he came out of nowhere, and Merle didn't get a chance to get anything in that round. And then obviously round 5 where, Bateman misses that final question with heavyweights. And we go to sudden death and Merle, ends up winning on that men at work question. But, I had picked Merle to begin with. And I think, I've said it for a long time that I felt like before all the drama with the FinSock Exchange, I wanted Bateman to win. But all of that just lit something under Merle. And we've seen that happen before, excuse me. And that also happened on stage because we saw a very different kind of Merle. He was very sassy. He said, Sir John Woo. Mm-hmm. And then he did all of these things where he's kind of like jabbing at Bateman and kind of like almost at the game in a way. And you don't want to do that to a guy like Merle. And it, unfortunately for Bateman, it bit him in the ass. It really bit him in the ass.
Old heel Bateman.
That's another thing too. That's another thing as well. Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of Action Guys Bateman that came out as well.
Which is my favorite Bateman. I'll take that any day over calm, collected Bateman. As far as the Schmoedown goes, it's I 100% agree. I think the drama just pushed Dan over the edge as far as he had to win it.
He and Roca, because we saw. We had heard during the live event that they weren't going to do any promos, but then of course Mr. Finstock has to come out and grab the mic, and then Roca gets involved. And I think that just kind of adds on top of it. And we saw what happened in New York just a month ago when Bibiana did the challenges and Merle kind of got pissed off. And unfortunately for them, it didn't end well. And again, it just happened this way. But as far as the match goes, I think it lived up to the hype. It's so fresh still. I'm not going to say yet it's the best of all time. But the fact that it went into sudden death and that they went back and forth the entire time, I thought it lived up to everything it should have been.
Yeah, you were jumping up, running around my living room.
Yeah, I was pumped. I was pumped. I was so pumped. Because, look, I would have been happy either way. I really would have. Like, Bateman, the way Bateman has changed over the last year since he left Guy, it hit me a little better because, I hated the Action Guys. I could not stand them. And it's just because I'm an old school guy who likes, I was a fan of Roca and I was a fan of Sam Levine and all these guys. And so... But the second Bateman made this change, I became a massive fan of him. And I was so pumped and spectacular when he won that match and the way he won the match. And I felt like if he kept, there was a chance for him to keep it going the entire year. But then the second all that stuff happened with FinSock Exchange, my mind instantly switched. And I felt like it was just Merle's destiny to do this again. And I have a feeling we'll see Bateman again for sure, obviously. But I have a feeling that Merle could make a run and maybe hold on to the belt longer than he ever has at this point.
Yeah, it's Christian said something today. There's some controversy on the last, on the 5-pointer. He said something on SEN today about, how he almost said something that he didn't, that one would be better for the league than the other. As far as what was better for ratings, what was better for the league. I don't know which is better for the league. You said something that I think I agreed with a lot last year and the year before being on your guys' side of the fence, you're a fan of the old guard. I was very much a fan of the old guard too. My girlfriend, who I got into the Schmoedown, is a fan of certain competitors more than others, but she didn't have a frame of reference for who was old or new guard. I've always been a fan of Roka. I've always been a fan of Merle. When Roka and Merle have chances to win the belt, I get excited because it reminds me of the original Roka Merle bouts. And I think maybe my perspective has changed where now I support the new guard. I want the Ben Batemans to have the belt. I want Kevin Smets to have the belt. I don't want Mike to have the belt. I want people like Hannah and Janine and
sure.
Parker. I want to see all the new blood flourish. So maybe that's why I was pulling for Bateman in the match. But it doesn't shock me at all that Merle took it, even with Bateman coming back. Yeah. But I'm curious from you guys, did you feel when Ben started coming back, when Ben got everything in the speed round minus the one question, when Ben got the betting round, did you feel the tide turning, or did you think that Dan was going to keep it?
I felt like I did. From what I can remember, I remember watching that and just thinking to myself, it doesn't even look like Dan knows what he's doing on the speed round, because it was Bateman just beat after beat after beat after beat, just going for it, and it seemed like, and especially in a match like this, momentum shifts. It's just like sports, like momentum shifts, and it's that other side is just done for. Like they're done for. But in the back of my head, as that fifth round came on, I felt like it was kind of just popping back in. Like, this is Dan Merle that we're looking at. Like, he's a very cool, calm, collected guy. He's been here before. He has never lost in a live event. He has won the belt in this kind of situation before. But I definitely felt like there was a momentum shift that felt like it was going to go Bateman's way the rest of the way, in my opinion, to do anyway.
Yeah, the speed. I personally hate the speed round because I feel like that is, from whatever I've seen, especially when we saw the Comic-Con with Rachel and Kalinowski.
Oh yeah.
There always seems to me almost like there's one person that is not good at that round, and like when we saw it with Rachel and Mike when we were there. Mike was all over the buzzer. This is kind of like the same way Bateman was all over the buzzer on Dan. So I almost kind of, unless the score is drastic, I almost kind of don't even pay attention to that round. But at this point, after seeing what Merle can do, it's almost like you're kind of an idiot to ever count him out, especially if it's a live show. Because it's he will pull it out of a hat like he did. And I mean, I'm almost daring to say that like Bateman getting like that hyped up could have even maybe messed with it, because
there's an argument there.
Yeah, he's been the same character of chill Ben, and then the second that speed round, he started pulling his shirt and stuff like that, like getting all hyped, and Merle's just kind of like, okay, bring on the next round. And then it was just boop boop boop, sudden death, it's over.
What did you think? Yeah.
Oh, that's me. Hey,
sorry.
I'm getting I hear you guys on par audio, but I'm getting a delay visual.
Got it.
So your head nod to me, I didn't catch it. Yeah, I mean, 100%. I like I said, I wanted Ben to take it as far as the new guard goes. I think that people talk about Rushmore
all the time,
the last couple months, as if it's something we're always going to debate. I have an opinion on this, and it's not who's on Rushmore, but it's that we should stop talking about Rushmore. Are we going to go change Rushmore tomorrow and put someone new on there?
For me, it's the same LeBron and MJ thing. It's
Rushmore is set. Rushmore is set. Whoever you think your Rushmore is, that's set. Ben winning last, the other day doesn't change who's on Rushmore. Dan's on Rushmore. Dan's on everyone's Rushmore. I thought that as soon as it went to sudden death, I knew that Ben wasn't going to be able to keep going, because Dan's great at round one, Ben's fine at round one, but I think that missing that 5-pointer is going to pull Ben out, of his headspace that he needs to be in. I don't think it's anything about him being amped up or anything like that. I think that him being amped up is what's going to keep him in the right mindset to win, because I think Ben does better when he's confident. No one's going to do worse when they think, damn, I just missed my 5-pointer. Now we're in sudden death. I'm playing against the greatest of all time. Can I do it? That's not a headspace that anyone wants to be in, But yeah, I think that, I think that those 5-pointers really are what makes or breaks a game. And as far as what you were saying, Brian, about the speed round, I have some thoughts on the speed round as far as like whether or not it's really indicative of any skill, because it's the only part of the game that's dexterity based. It's the only part of the game that's not a mental.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because I personally, ever since we went to the Comic-Con taping of Rachel and Mike's match, I personally hate the speed round, because when we were there, you could visibly see Rachel was not comfortable with the buzzer.
Yeah, there was something wrong with the physical, just the buzzers themselves. It's not the fact that nobody can do it, it's just how they work.
Exactly. And it almost threw her off in a way, because there were multiple times where she was just like she was looking at it like it wasn't responding. So, I mean, I personally, because, I mean, that's almost in a way like how fast are your reflexes? And that could make or break the whole entire game.
Right. And I mean, I've thought about, this is a whole other tangent, but I thought about like what happens when we get a competitor who is differently abled.
It's very true.
How are they ever going to compete? They could be the best trivia person ever, but how can they compete in the speed round? Now, not that I think that that's a good enough reason, but it's just kind of something that has always popped in. I mean, it's the fact of the matter is Ben is young and fit and in shape, and
it's true.
He's going to be better.
Very fair point.
Kalinowski is in his 40s and looks like he's in his 20s. He's probably going to be pretty damn good at the speed round. I mean, it's kind of just a matter of yes, it is knowledge based at that point, but at the same time, if you just because you're the quickest on the trigger doesn't mean you're going to get it right. And it's a great example with the Oscars question. He answered Endgame, I think, or Infinity War, and it's Black Panther, and that might have cost him the game. So I guess it's a double-edged sword, and I've seen Mike do it. I've seen if you look at I think I could be wrong, but I think the same thing happened to the kid at Spectacular, who was the quickest on the speed round, whatever. Yes. So I think that every time we see someone who's just lightning fast on those buzzers, I think they all get hit with missing a question, just based on time constraint. And then you're in the hole point. So, if you're playing from behind like Ben is, and you miss even just one, well, that negates another question that you've answered correctly, and it doesn't put you any farther ahead just because you hit the buzzer first.
All right, well, before we move on to our points and the faction rankings and get out of here, Sean, I just got a question about with Merle. Do you think he has a better chance of holding on to the belt the rest of the year, or do you think that someone else is going to be holding that at the end of the year?
No, I don't think there's a chance that Merle holds on to the belt for the full year. because I think that Merle wants to compete in another division.
Yeah, Geeks him.
Against Mar.
Yeah, I don't when people look at like, oh well, someone's going to hold on to the belt the whole year. Number one, I don't think that is really possible anymore. I think that there's enough competitors that have come into the league, and I'm not counting myself among these as these savant competitors, but there's enough, Kevin Smetz's that have, just, yeah, he lost once, but I mean, he's pretty much, other than that, stormed the division to get to where he is. If it weren't for what everyone's saying about Robert Parker, which I don't know the kid very well. I've met him a couple times. I haven't seen him compete yet, but everyone's talking about how good he's going to be. If it weren't for him, I don't see Kevin losing the belt this year.
Yeah,
I can't say the same thing for anyone in singles, because the fact of the matter is, we could have a repeat of Dan and Roca trading the belt back and forth, but this time with Ben and Dan. You still have Ethan Irwin, you still have, Bibiani, you still have these people that are going to, put their heart and soul into taking that belt. And whether it's someone from the old guard or the new guard, as far as, different eras of the game and different thought processes of the game, I don't think anyone in singles can hold on to a belt for a whole year anymore.
It's very, very true. And I mean, just thinking about the last year, we had 4 champions. It was Ethan, Merle, Oyama, and then Bateman at the end of the year. And that was all in one calendar year. So,
and with the amount of competitors we have now versus how many matches someone's going to get, you lose once, you don't know when your next match is. Especially if you're a rookie. If you lose one match, you might be done, period.
Yeah. Very true.
Because you don't have the fan loyalty anymore.
Exactly.
So, or yet, not anymore, but you don't have the fan loyalty yet. So, let's look at, I don't know what's aired yet. God. Let's look at.
Well, you could say, look at Janine.
Riley.
Oh, yeah.
Janine.
I was going to say,
yes, Janine. Yes.
Okay. So, let's look at Riley Janine. Janine lost, but the fans love her.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
If that was a rookie, number one, that match wouldn't have had the same stakes if it was a rookie. But if it was a rookie, God only knows if she's going to come back. Yeah. Again, with 90 competitors. But what that means is someone who can, come into the league and make their mark, like
you.
Like Kevin did last year. That's my frame of reference because I don't know what's aired yet. Someone could come into the league and make their mark like Kevin did last year, or like Tom and Video Drew did last year. They're set for their Schmoedown career. Yeah. Tom and Paul lost their match Deep 13.
They're going to be back.
But they're going to come back. They're loved. But yeah, I think that I don't see, as far as the 4 champions last year, I hope that there's not 4 again this year. I think that that's bad for the league. I think that singles belt is best when it only changes hands once or twice in a year. But I think it needs to change hands at least once. And as far as for the health of the league, and as far as likelihood of anyone holding on to it, I think that there's not a chance Dan keeps it the whole year.
It would be pretty cool to see them go back and forth a little bit. Maybe even if it's just once, to have like that kind of boxing style thing where they have the Bateman versus Merle 2 or the Bateman versus Merle 3, and it just kind of goes throughout 2020 with like he had mentioned, new guard versus old guard. You go all year long to see who goes back and forth each other. That would definitely be really cool.
I would like to see it leave the Finstock Exchange.
Eventually.
I would like to see Ben leave the Finstock Exchange.
We didn't even touch. I'm surprised.
We'll have to have you back to have that kind of conversation, because we touched on that last week, and we went into all kinds of detail about those possibilities.
Do you think, also ask, if you can say it, do you think there's any chance those 4 stay together?
I can totally say. I'm not, I talk to my, few people that I know. I don't really I'm not talking to Christian. I'm not talking to, anyone really on the inside. No, I don't think that those four stay together. Because I think that it's clear it's clear from what happened in that post interview that Roca and Bateman have some hot blood together, and it's even Merle and Dan. I think there's a possibility for bad blood there. I've never seen them interact on a personal level. I've seen them in the same room together, but I don't know what they're, so, as far as that goes, no, I don't think when you throw Finstock in the mix with those people, I don't think there's a chance that those egos don't cause a rift. Now, that being said, the question has been thrown to Roxy and Winston and Kate, would you fight to get Roca?
Yep.
I don't know that I would fight to get Roca. If I were in a management spot, I would not fight to get Roca. I love Roca. He has been one of my favorite competitors as a fan for a long time. I love him as a person. I've gotten to know him a little bit better. Not, a whole lot, but I've seen him at tapings and stuff. I would not fight to get Roca. Not because he's not a great competitor, but because he's not worth what you'll have to give up. It goes back to what I was saying before about the points and what's going to win you. At the end of the day, what's going to get you the most points for your faction? I don't think Roca's it. I think Bateman might be it, but I don't think Roca's it. I think you're going to be better off with someone like the Barbarian that is brand new, and people are like, oh, what's this guy going to do? Let's see him on a team. Let's see him in singles. That's going to get you way more points than Roca will. If the Barbarian could play the way he has, or if Goddard can play the way he has, someone like them is going to get you, far more points than someone like Roca, who is going to run into a roadblock and lose a match. And, again, no disrespect to Roca. It's just a matter of that's how the game, that's, historically what's happened. The greats are always going to lose. Whether it's Roca or Merle or Cushing, eventually they're going to have someone on their heels like a Kalinowski, or like, I guess with Roca and Merle, it's just Roca or Merle. They're going to have someone else on their heels to knock them off their pedestal. So as far as the trades go, I don't know that Roca or Dan is really worth their points. Dan might be, depending on if he does actually make an IG run. If Dan actually makes an IG run, Dan suddenly becomes worth his points. But top tier competitors that are going to sit and not have as many matches aren't worth their weight in points.
Fair points. Fair points.
Speaking of points,
I could be totally wrong on all that. That's just my gut reaction as far as keeping Roca on the Finstock exchange. It's almost in all the other managers' best interest, because let's look at the rock stars. What would she have to give up to get?
Be a Dame, man.
Okay, she'd have to give up JTE and one of the odd couple minimum. Jared Habon, you can't trade Jared Habon for Roca. You've got to trade a heavy hitter in order to get Roca. You've probably got to trade two heavy hitters to get Roca. What, Tom and Paul for Roca if he comes to the Den?
No way. No, I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't either.
It's not worth it.
Not even close.
No. Simply put, I'd rather have a pile of dead bodies than a bunch of V for Vendetta masks.
That's fair.
It's true.
Fair.
Take one or the other.
All right, Brian. Well, let's run down these faction points before we get out of here. What does it look like this week after Atlanta?
We are finally starting to get an actual.
And this is thank you to Tobias and Tobias in the Facebook group.
We have Finstock Exchange at 4-2, 2 KOs or TKOs, and 11 points. Second place, the Den, with a 3-1 record and 7 points. Third place, the Rockstars, 1-0, 1 KO TKO, and 4 points. Corky Mercs in fourth, 1-2, 1 KO TKO, 3 points. A two-way tie for fifth with the Burning Droogs, who are 1-1 with 2 points, and the Usual Suspects 1-1 with 2 points. Swag is in seventh, 0-1. Corruption and the Dungeon in a two-way tie, both being 0-2.
Yeah, I mean, it's shifted a little bit, and obviously Damon's win and Inner Geekdom pushed them up pretty high because of those extra points in that league.
That was their Rockstar's first match.
Yeah,
period.
so they went from 0-4 in a heartbeat, and that could,
that was a TKO, right?
Yeah, and that could be Roxy's Achilles heel all year long if he continues to do that. Or have those kind of matches, he could kind of be the crutch for them. Finstock Exchange is doing what they do, obviously. Not surprised there. And the Den, you guys are just sticking there, staying strong as we expected. We really did expect to see that, and it's a lot of young blood, a young talent who's showing match in and match out, and it's very exciting to see because you have Tom and Paul who are second year rookies, quote. But they're the veterans really of the faction, and you have Grace as a veteran manager, but then you have a brand new manager in Kate. You got Sean, you got Ben, you got Brett in there, and there's a lot of new blood who are showing that they have the game. So how do you feel about it, Sean?
It's funny when you say Tom and Paul are the veterans, because I guess I don't really think of them as really that that
Tom
veteran.
is a veteran.
I know, right?
But yeah, I guess I never looked at the faction that way. I looked at the faction as, I can say it because other people have said it, 3 together.
Oh.
Silvestrini, Hannah, and Marzonia live together.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, so I could say that because I know they've said it before. Maybe cut that out. But three of our faction mates live together. I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, 3 of our faction mates live together, and then you have the SEN crew, and that's our faction, plus Paul and Tom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of look at our faction like it's this weird conglomerate of weird personalities and weird tenuous links. And then what really shocks me is the Mercs. Because what match have they won? What matches did they lose?
So they lost in the beginning of the year with Bibiani and the Kid at the New York event. And then they won with the Real Rejects.
So is that their 2?
So, yeah, so they lost 2 points because they had 2 competitors in the match.
Okay. So that was what was what was tossing me off was. I didn't remember them having that many matches,
but
I
only had 2 so far, from what I remember.
Yeah, it's literally just the
teams match in the New York event.
Real event, or the
Real
New
Rejects.
York event.
But I mean, and Finstock, the Den's matches are gonna dry up. We all had so many, we had so many rookies that needed to come in and people wanted to see and needed to prove. The Den will have less matches coming up, and so that the early points push will change. But at the same time, because we've won, those that have played have won, you're going to see more. The same thing with Finstock Exchange. The Barbarian's going to get more matches. He's won. But the Finstock Exchange is in a weird spot because, they're on top right now, but all of their competitors are, again, that top tier that's going to get less matches. Really where I think you need to be is that you need to have mid-tier competitors in this league because those are who are going to get the most matches. Your Mark Riley's, not that Mark Riley is not top tier, but the way, where he currently is as far as standings go, he put mid-tier at Silvestrini, who's mid-tier. Goddard, who's a rookie, who's gonna prove herself. Janine, who is, again, is right in that mid tier of could be great, but right now is still, behind the leaders in the pack. So I think that's where like someone like the Rockstars is really going to struggle in that they have the Odd Couple who's just on the cusp of that top tier. They've been to championships. They've seen the top, but then they fall back back to the pack and then keep moving forward. That's who they're gonna have to rely on to get points. I know that there's been some matches announced for the Odd Couple.
Yeah, they play.
Maybe.
Oh God, who do they play? Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on? They play at the end of the month. Is it?
Okay, but there is something announced for them.
Yes, they're playing. I believe they're playing at the end of the month, or even the beginning of April.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what. I mean, I don't see Jared Habon, having a ton of matches. Yeah. I don't see, JTE's on the other side of the country. Alex is on the other side of the country. So someone like the Rockstars, who has their 4 points today, how, if the Odd Couple can't pull through, how many points are they going to get off those other competitors? It's. I'm just hoping the match count evens out, right? Because I don't want. Obviously, I want the Den to win,
of course,
at the end of the year, but I don't want to have won simply because Christian scheduled us the most matches. That makes sense. And I don't think that's. From what I can see and from what I understand, I do not at all think that that's what's going on. I just think that that's how the schedule has worked out so far. And remember, there's other matches that have taped. That's how he's chosen to air them.
That's true.
That doesn't mean that's how they were scheduled.
Very true.
So,
we'll
little bit of a peek behind the curtain, not too much, but I mean, again, it's gonna come down to ultimately what does each faction's new players bring, and the factions that don't have any new players, like the Rockstars, who can you get into that run?
You have Stacy,
because
that's
is Stacy on the Rockstars?
Yes, so she is that mid tier you're talking about that could end up getting a lot of matches and make a good run at some competitors.
Okay, yeah, that's what. I don't know who's on what team.
Trust me, we have a spreadsheet that we look at every.
Had to make
we it's so all pages. Over the place. Yeah, we can't keep up with it for sure.
Yeah,
I mean it's and I can't, and that's kind of why, like, kudos to Christian, because he does all of this in his dang head. He can tell you who's where, who's competing in what, and when that's coming out, and when that's scheduled, and when that's taping, and. Man, kudos to that guy. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, seriously. Well, thank you very much, Sean, for joining us, man. It was fun. It was a long 2 hours, but we really, really appreciate you being on the show with us today, man.
My pleasure. Did we really go 2 hours?
Yeah, it's almost 2 hours long. No, we're trust me, we had a blast talking and getting behind the curtain and kind of a BTS look at it all. And it's I hope it's breaking the record count as far as length goes, but maybe we break some views on the channel as well. Yeah. So.
Well, if nothing else, hopefully it means that you can get other more well-known competitors to get.
I mean, we do have the undefeated Star Wars, only undefeated.
The only undefeated Star Wars player on the show so far.
Oh, that's true. Well, is that true? And is every other Star Wars competitor?
That is true.
Oh, hold on to that one. All right, that's going to go in my next promo.
There you go. Cool. Well, thank you again for joining us, man. Brian, as always, good to do this every week, man. You guys can find us on Twitter, YouTube, audio podcast platforms like Anchor, Apple, and Spotify. Make sure you leave us a comment on what you think of the show and the matches and everything that we talked about on the show. We'd love to hear from you guys. And you can also find us on Twitter as well at all of our personal channels. So, again, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.